Hello, and welcome back to the final review for the first week of Trilogy Month, where I'm now on Back to the Future Part 3, my personal favorite in the whole franchise, and the first one that I seen. So yeah, I've been mentioning this the past two Back to the Future reviews, where for part three was the very first Back to the Future I remember receiving. I got it disc only in a little CD case type of thing, and I loved it so much that I would, every weekend was usually when I was allowed to stay up, obviously a bit later, and also watch a movie before going to bed. And so for there was a couple of movies that I had on, that I would watch over and over and over again. This being one of them. So yeah, so going back to it, I felt that bit of familiarity with it because, like I said, it's my favorite in the franchise. It picks up right where we last left off at the end of Back to the Future 2, where Marty goes and sees 1955 Doc Brown, and then he then goes to get the DeLorean once 1955 Doc reads the letter that was left for Marty by the Western Union. And so they fix it up and do all that stuff and give him, a Wild Wild West outfit. And so he goes back. And once again, as it seems to be a common theme with these movies, he runs into his past family once again, the first McFlys to leave Ireland and settle in America, which the Irish accents are just so god awful, between Seamus and Maggie. Uh, Dear God, they are just so bad. They're it could have been better. They could have just had them as normal Americans instead of them being, immigrants from Ireland. But eventually, he goes into the town, into Hill Valley, meets, Biff's ancestor of Mad Dog Tannen, pisses him off, and Mad Dog nearly hangs him. And that is when, of course, Doc Brown shows back up, and I love the interaction of Doc seeing Marty again and just them being happy to see one another again. That brought a smile to my face because it shows just how much each of them mean to each other. The friendship that they've formed over the years, and especially over the past three movies, which to them must have set basically was just one long day, thinking about it because, it was the night where Doc goes into showcases the DeLorean in the first movie, gets shot and killed. Well, in that timeline, because now there's whole different timelines to be thinking about, and the more I think about it, the more my head hurts. So let me just break this down. So yeah, there's timeline A, where the DeLorean is revealed, Doc gets shot, and Marty travels back in time. This now creates a new timeline because he interacts with 1955, Emmett Brown, and he also interacts with his parents, and the whole rest of the film happens. But we do see some kind of changes when with the instead of it being the 2 Pine Mall, it becomes the 1 Pine Mall, and Doc is still alive because he has the chest plate. And so that happens. So that's then the next morning, literally the very next morning, um, Doc comes running up. They go travel into the future to then travel back into the past to then travel back into the further past to prevent all that stuff. So that's also so that doesn't change it. So that's still the second timeline that we have, since they erased the other timeline. And so then, with when the DeLorean gets sent back into 1885, that now creates a third timeline because that Marty who's gone through the first two movies now interacts again with 1955 Doc Brown, who now knows that his future self is going to end up in the Wild Wild West, and not only that, he knows that there's the potential future that hasn't changed, where he's going to die in the Wild Wild West being shot by Mad Dog Cannon over the amount of $80. And then this movie happens, which creates a fourth timeline. Yeah, it creates a fourth timeline because it erases that timeline. So it's either it creates a fourth timeline, or we get end up erasing that timeline. So there's still the two timelines. You see where I'm going with this? Why I say I love time travel movies. Don't get me wrong, but if I have to think about it, it just hurts. It just hurts my head trying to think about it. Um, but yeah, it's also this is the movie where Doc gets his love interest, and Clara Thingamabob Clark. I don't know. I watched this movie this morning. I'm recording it later on, so I can't remember. Clayton. That's it. Clara Clayton. Cece. Um, and so Doc initially wants to stay back because he's in love with her. And so but Marty tries to convince him and nearly successfully convinces him until we get to the end of the movie. However, when the shootout between Marty, aka Clint Eastwood, versus Mad Dog Cannon, like I said in my Back to the Future Part 2 review, there's some Chekhov's gun in that it took a whole movie for it to pay off, where Marty saw that future, that the timeline that does not exist of Evil Biff, watching that Clint Eastwood movie where he has the makeshift, body armor, bulletproof vest. So Marty uses it in this movie. As well, there's also another Chekhov's gun with the hoverboard being brought, because that's what saves Doc and Clara on the train at the end of the film. But yeah, I love this film. There's a lot that I love and adore about it. However, one thing that kind of bugs me now, that it didn't bug me before, but it kind of bugs me now, is the fact that last movie, and even a good bit of this movie, the Doc has been constantly saying that when he gets back to the future, he wants to destroy the DeLorean, because he's sick and tired of the time travel shenanigans shits that has been happening for the past three movies. And so we get that. We do see that in at the end of the movie, like after Marty makes it back to 1985. Technically the past by the time when this film came out, because it came out in 1990. Yeah, 1990. So it was 5 years ago. So he's not really going back to the future. He's going back to the little bit in the past. But yeah, DeLorean gets broken up, gets destroyed, and all that stuff. And then it's not until after Marty brings Jen back that the Doc shows up in a fucking time traveling train. Like, as cool as that looks, it kind of defeats the purpose of the Doc saying, "Oh, let's just get rid of the time machine because it's causes nothing but headaches," which it has. With Marty traveling back to 1955, and then traveling all the way into 2015, and then traveling all the way back to 1885. But I love it. I love it. It's a perfect end to a really great trilogy. And there's a reason why it has so much fans, and it's held in such high regards to this day. And I know there some people want it to be remade, but a lot of people, like even the writer and the director, doesn't want that to happen. Like he's holding out tight for that. The way, because the way Hollywood is nowadays, a lot of it is it tends to be live action remakes or just remakes in general. So I'm glad that Back to the Future hasn't been touched, because it doesn't need to be. It's one of those trilogies that is perfect to stay as is. It doesn't need a fourth one, though technically the Traveler Tales, or TT, whatever the fuck they were called, there was a Back to the Future game on PS4 and Xbox One. That is kind of considered a fourth Back to the Future get a movie because it's, even though it's a game, it continues on from 3 leading into 4. So technically there does exist a continuation in video game form, but it's also, I don't think a lot of people see that as canon. But yeah, that is going to wrap this up. The first week of Trilogy month is officially in the books. So, what is the next trilogy that I am going to be covering? That is going to be the sequel trilogy of Star Wars Episode 7, 8, and 9. Episode 8 is going to be an interesting one because I've only seen half of it. I've never seen it in full. And I know just how very divisive this movie is for a lot of fans. And I know it brings out a lot of toxicity from the fandom. So, yeah, I'm going to have to keep an ironclad lock on those comments for a lot of those things. But anyway, that is going to wrap this up. Let me know what you thought of Back to the Future Part 3 and the whole Back to the Future franchise as a whole in the comments down below. And I shall see you all on Monday for another brand new movie review as we enter into the second trilogy of the month. I shall see you all on the next upload.